Skull Rock Podcast is brought to you by the generosity of the following companies. Shure, sound extraordinary. To podcasters, recording musicians, and streamers who are looking for studio quality audio at home or on the road, the Shure MV7 Podcast Kit is a premium all-in-one solution inspired by the legendary Shure SM7B and is designed to address the versatility required by modern creators. For more on the Shure MV7 Podcast Kit, visit shure.com, SHURE.com, or click the link in our show notes. Shure, sound extraordinary. And by The Old Mill Press, publishing beautifully crafted books that illuminate our world. To learn more, visit theoldmillpress.com. And by listeners like you.
Hi, I'm John Canemaker, author, animator, blah, 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 and I'm welcoming you to the Skull Rock Podcast. Welcome.
Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture, with your hosts, Aljon Go and Dave Bossert.
Welcome to Skull Rock Podcast, the show about all things Disney and pop culture. Every week, we take you behind the scenes of some of your favorite Disney films, theme park attractions, performances, books, music, as well as what's streaming, what's in theaters, and what is going on in this universe of entertainment. I'm Aljon Go, musician and longtime Disney, Marvel, Star Wars fan, and pop culture guy. And you can email me, Aljon, ALJON, at skullrockpodcast.com.
And I'm Dave Bossert, artist, filmmaker, author, and welcome to the Skull Rock Podcast. If you love Disney and pop culture, please subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can also email me at dave@skullrockpodcast.com. Aljon, lots of changes happening here at the Skull Rock media empire.
Yes, Dave.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, we're changing up a few things. You know, Eric Robson in Honolulu gave us a new logo. We're gonna play around with some new music at the beginning of the show,
yes,
like we did today.
Yes. Yes.
And also some exciting news because you were able to put the Skull Rock Podcast onto our own YouTube channel.
Yes. So not only can you like and share and subscribe to us and reach out with all of our social media feeds, but now on YouTube, check out youtube.com/skullrockpodcast. And you'll be able to find all of our episodes there, all 197, and as of today, 198 episodes on YouTube, which is awesome.
I know, and that's something we have to emphasize to our audience. This is the 198th show.
Wow.
So I think we're going to have some hoopla for the 200th show in a couple of weeks.
We must have some hoopla. I
mean, you know what I think we should do for the 200th show? I think we're going to give away some stuff.
Oh, wow. We are? Okay.
Yeah. Let's do that. We'll give away some books. We'll do some swag or something. Okay. So just so our listeners know, in a couple of weeks, when the 200th show drops, you're going to have an opportunity to win some cool stuff.
You know what would be great, Dave, is if we actually did it because, we have so many listeners globally that are subscribed to the show on our multiple feeds, but we want to draw traffic and attention to our new YouTube page. Maybe we should urge every one of our subscribers to also subscribe on YouTube. And out of all the subscribers on YouTube, we do a drawing or something.
Yeah, I know. I think that would be fantastic. By the way, on the YouTube page, it's audio only.
Yes.
Right. We haven't put the video up yet. So we may do that at some point with select interviews. But we have to go back out to those people and make sure they're okay with all of that. And we have to have some editing stuff done and things like that. But we're getting there.
I think that's really cool, Dave. I mean, we have all of these interviews over the past few years archived in some way. Most of it we do over Zoom, which is really cool. And I think it would be great for people to see, what it's like and how we do this kind of stuff. But more importantly, they get to check out all of the interviews over time. And that's a lot of fun, to go back and listen to all these great interviews.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. So before we go on, though, Aljon, I do want to touch on something because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. I was really kind of peeved, if you will, by the fact that they're taking the hanging corpse out of the stretching room at the Haunted Mansion.
Yeah. You were really upset.
Yeah, I really was annoyed by that because maybe there was some small group of people who feel like that it's too scary or something.
Yeah.
And I remembered writing a little bit about scary stuff at Disneyland in my Claude Coates book. And I went back and I want to read this to our listeners. Okay. This is from Claude Coates, Walt Disney's Imagineer. It's on page 52 of the book. And it says, some of the rides had scary moments and the company received complaint letters, mostly about the witch scene in Snow White. So we're talking about the Snow White dark ride in Fantasyland,
where
right?
she turns around and she's scaring people.
Yeah. And quote, Walt never seemed to mind, unquote, Coates said. Quote, he thought that children sometimes have to learn that things were scary, you know, unquote. Walt said in an interview later, quote, I'm told I'm not supposed to scare the public, but shucks, people like to be scared, unquote.
Yeah.
That's Walt. People like to be scared, you know? So get over it. Leave the hanging corpse at the top of the stretching room. And by the way, if a small group of people have complained, maybe all of our listeners should write to the Walt Disney Company, send a note to Bob Iger saying, we want to keep the hanging corpse at the top of the stretching room. It's cool when the lightning flashes and you see it hanging up there.
Dave, how long has the Haunted Mansion been in existence?
Since 1969. And that hanging corpse has been up there since then.
That's right.
And to go in and try and take it out now is just ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. Ridiculous. And we should, maybe I should try and find an email for somebody at the company and have our listeners email them.
Well, we can always start a petition. We can get a petition going and say,
yeah, maybe we do. What is it? What's that petition? Something org.
Something like petitionit.org or something. I don't know. Don't go there. I haven't vetted that website. You might go somewhere you don't want to go. But maybe we'll start a petition. I think it's worth noting that decades over decades and millions upon millions of guests around the globe have been to the Haunted Mansion in both coasts, both the Walt Disney World and Disneyland, and they have never said anything about the corpse ever up until recently. And this is another one of those things where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just because you have a couple of complaints and people that are sensitive, you know what? That's fine, but you have millions upon millions of guests over decades and generations that love the attraction for what it is. And this is a situation where they're not enhancing the ride at all by adding holograms or, different animatronics to it and upgrading, different parts of the ride attraction. No, they're just removing it. Yeah, it's ridiculous as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. And I wanted to read that passage because Walt himself said that, people like to be scared, and they should be. They should be a little scared. And by the way, for those who don't like the hanging corpse, don't look up. Okay. don't look up, but don't spoil it for everybody else. Well, all right. Enough about that. We have a great show, Aljon. We've got veteran animator Mark Kausler back for part 2 of his interview. Okay. Yes. Part 2. Yes, Mark is a great interview, and I think we have a lot of great feedback from it as well, so I'm looking forward to that. And, of course, we have our news and picks of the week. But first and foremost, we do have
Skull Rock Podcast answers your email.
With the advent of our brand new YouTube page, without any type of promotion, and we just put it out there, we have gotten some feedback, believe it or not, regarding the show. And which is always good. So let's take a look at some of our feedback on our YouTube page. This is from Aaron Ferguson 3169. Sorry if anyone criticizes about The Incredibles, but I'm thinking it also has me thinking about my huge wish that there was another superhero in the family of The Incredibles of the Parr family. I wish the superhero was a male teen named Raymond, being Bob and Helen's eldest son and male version of Violet. His powers creating gravity fields. He's also strong, but of course is not as strong as Bob. I'm glad the Incredibles movies are all right. They're all right the way they are, but still would have liked it more if Raymond with gravity powers had some strength and was a character. And I guess this is in reference to Bob Scott being on our show. Bob Scott, of course, involved in animating Toy Story 3 and WALL-E, Ratatouille over at Pixar.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, how Violet, these different characters that go through the different stages of development, they just morph and they change. I really like The Incredibles. I think they're a Marvel movie from, Fantastic Four type movie, being better than the Fantastic Four that was on at the time that they did with Fox, and they did it so well. And I love The Incredibles, Dave.
Yeah, no, it's a great Pixar movie. It really is.
Absolutely. Hey, by the way, Tammy Tuckey says, thanks for having me on the show. You both are wonderful hosts. Of course, this goes back to Tammy Tuckey being featured on our show as a singer, filmmaker, actress, and podcaster.
And talking about and promoting her new album.
Absolutely. Which is really great. So Tammy, of course, is still out there. And check out the Tammy Tuckey Show wherever you get podcasts, because she's
We love
amazing.
Tammy. I've been on her show a number of times.
We do. We have another comment here. Of course, Apache 315 says, this in regards to Don Hahn being on our show celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Hunchback of Notre Dame. It said, R.I.P. David Ogden Stiers and Tony J. The judge and Frollo are now in heaven. Yes, this is true. We have a lot of people commenting on the fact that they miss Ogden Stiers' performances, and what else can I say about it? I mean, that's just an amazing. Actor.
He was an incredibly nice man. I had the opportunity to work with him a couple of times and record him for a project, and he was just a very nice individual.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Yeah, so we do have a few comments and some comments here and there. A lot of them are thumbs up, which is really good. Once again, if you want to leave some comments on some of our show archives, you can go to YouTube. You're welcome to do that. Subscribe to the show. As Dave mentioned, we're celebrating almost 200 episodes. So we got two more episodes before the big 200. So you should go and subscribe there at youtube.com/Skull Rock Podcast. Which is
and something, I think it is a great idea, Aljon. Maybe if people subscribe, then we'll pick names out of that batch of subscribers.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's promote it over the next few weeks, and we'll definitely do that. And check our show notes for the direct link. We'll have it right there. Absolutely. All right, Dave. We are into our picks of the week. There's not only a big week in pop culture, it's been absolutely crazy, everything that's going on in the world today, but at least you and I have been watching some stuff. And what can you recommend this week?
I'm always watching stuff, but first off, I want to say, what was that sound effect? We didn't get that kind of reel with the film going through the shutter sound effect.
I don't know what that was.
It was just a...
Was it the sound effect? I don't remember.
There it is. Yeah, old film projector sound.
That was my old film projector sound mix. Yeah, I look. Listen, if you're new to the show, you understand that I have like 17 different buttons that I press here, and usually I mark it and it says Stinger for Skull Rock Podcast, but I had it on the wrong page, so it was just some kind of weird stinger I put in there. So,
all right, listen, we're going to talk about this in the news, but I did go see Twisters.
Ooh,
28 years after the original Twister movie is Twisters, which is the sequel. I saw it in IMAX, and I have to tell you, Aljon, this movie was kind of to me. Some of the storyline was very predictable, but I have to say the special effects were absolutely outstanding. And it was amazing to see some of this stuff on an IMAX screen. It was very impactful.
Very nice.
And I have to say it's very timely because there's so many tornadoes happening this year. There's just been, a crazy amount of tornadoes throughout the midsection of the country and even drifting eastward towards you guys.
This is true. We got a lot of rain.
Yeah. So it was very timely that this movie's come out this year. I have to say, it visually it was very, very cool, but story wise, it was very predictable. For me, I'd give it a 6.5, 7 out of 10. It was okay. It was enjoyable visually.
Did you like the original Twister?
It was okay. It's like, what I thought when the movie started, because there's a big action special effects sequence at the beginning of the movie. I thought to myself, this is like Irwin Allen disaster movies from the 1970s.
Of course, like Earthquake.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's an okay movie. Another movie I saw, which was on Amazon Prime, was My Spy, The Eternal City.
Yes.
Now, all I have to say, Aljon, is one name: Dave Bautista.
Of course.
I love Dave Bautista.
Yeah.
I think Dave Bautista is probably one of the best actors to ever come out of wrestling or the cage fighting or whatever they do. You're a fan of that stuff. But I think Dave Bautista not only has great range, but he's an imposing individual. And he's got what I think is not only great screen presence, but he seems like this very nice person who's also very much a scary looking individual.
Yes.
He's
both. He's all.
and there's that edge of danger to him. And I really like that. I think he's terrific in this film. I enjoyed this movie. There's some comic edges to it. It's fun and light. You should absolutely check it out. Dave Bautista in My Spy, The Eternal City. It's on Amazon Prime.
So this is a sequel to My Spy that was released in 2020.
That is right.
Remember that.
Yes.
And he lost a lot of weight. Apparently, he's been doing a lot of different exercises and slimmed down because he just feels better about it. Apparently, in a recent interview, he was talked about how much weight he shed for his role, and he just feels better at that weight. He's not wrestling anymore.
Right.
So I think he looks great, man. Dave Bautista, man, congratulations on another hit film.
Yes, he looked fantastic in the film and did look like he lost weight, especially if you remember him from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh yeah.
So in Guardians of the Galaxy, he's a bit beefier in that movie.
Oh yeah, for
or
sure.
Movies, I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. It's true superhero.
Right.
Yep.
So I've also been watching season 3 of Mayor of Kingstown on Paramount Plus.
Speaking of superheroes, Jeremy Renner. And,
after that horrific accident he was in and almost died from, he's back. He looks great. You wouldn't know he almost died, before they filmed this season.
Truly a miracle. Miracle with this guy.
Really is. But I would say, and I'm just popping my notes up here, that with Mayor of Kingstown, it's a crime drama about an important contemporary issue, America's prison system. Mayor of Kingstown follows the McCluskey family in Kingstown, Michigan, where the business of incarceration is the only thriving industry. The family of power brokers between police, criminals, inmates, prison guards, and politicians tackles themes of systemic racism, corruption, and inequality. The crime thriller series provides a stark look at their attempt to bring order and justice to a town that has neither. This is a Taylor Sheridan show. I've talked about it before on our picks of the week. Jeremy Renner, Mayor of Kingstown. It's a terrific series. It's in season 3. If you haven't watched any of it, check it out. Start with season 1 and you'll get sucked into it. Next up, Aljon, on Hulu, I've been watching Maine Cabin Masters season 6.
Yes.
There's no shortage of work for Maine-based builder Chase Morrell, whose specialty is renovating rustic cabins and camps all over the Pine Tree State. Working alongside his sister, brother-in-law, and best friend, Morrell contracts with clients to save and transform rundown cabins buried deep in Maine's remote woods. From century-old cabins to lakeside retreats in need of some major repairs, Chase and his team give these dilapidated properties the revivals they have needed for decades. I tend to watch this show in July and August, typically leading into when I'm going on my personal retreat up to Maine for a couple of weeks, which I'll be doing in the middle of September this year. So the last 2 weeks of September, folks, I will not be here. In fact, Aljon, you may not be here. You're going to be globetrotting as well. Anyway, we'll talk about that in the future. Yes. But I would say Maine Cabin Masters is sort of a reality-based show, and it's fantastic, the transformation that these guys do to some of these old rustic cabins and camps out in the woods of Maine. So check that out on Hulu.
Fascinating.
I also watched a show that is really, I thought it was a really well done show. It's called Collision, and it stars Douglas Henshall, who is a very recognizable Scottish actor. He starred in Shetland, which is a very great series that is on BritBox that you can check out on BritBox. This show focuses on a devastating car crash that has far-reaching consequences. In the aftermath of the collision, all those involved, including those investigating the incident, find their lives intertwining and secrets being revealed. So this is an interesting limited series where there's this horrific car crash that involves like a half a dozen or so automobiles and a truck on a major highway in England. And through flashbacks and present day, they are investigating how this whole thing came about and all the people involved in it and their lives leading up to that crash. Really well done. It kind of drew me in right away. So I would say check that out. You can see it on Amazon Prime. It's on Tubi. It's on YouTube TV. Let's see, where else is it available? Pluto TV. So if you have any of those channels, you could check it out. I watched it on Amazon Prime.
That's pretty cool.
And then finally, I've been watching season 3 of Narcos.
Yes.
Netflix chronicles the rise of the cocaine trade in Colombia and the gripping real life stories of drug kingpins of the late 1980s in this raw, gritty original series. This stars our friend Pedro Pascal.
Yes.
and Pedro Pascal is in this, carries over from the first 2 seasons. There's a new cast for the most part in season 3, with the exception of Pedro Pascal. Really well done. The season 3 focuses on the Cali cartel, with Pedro Pascal reprising his role from the previous 2 seasons as the DEA agent. I really enjoyed this series. There's only 3 seasons to it. If you haven't seen it, check it out, because it intercuts, fictional acting and like a TV show with news footage of these narcos. Pablo Escobar and the Cali cartel and all of this stuff. Really very well done series. Highly recommended. Aljon, what have you been watching?
Well, Dave, that's quite a list. I actually started watching Mayor of Kingstown this week, and Jeremy Renner's just amazing. So I can't wait to get caught up on that. Another thing I have caught up in is The Big Drop. Cobra Kai is back on Netflix, and we are looking at season 6 already.
This is season 6 that's dropped.
Cannot believe it. It's already season 6. A show that should not have done well is doing gangbuster numbers for Netflix. This season, the Miyagi-Do students struggle to put aside their past rivalries while training for the Sekai Taikai tournament. Johnny Lawrence and Chosen will be clashing over the rebranding of the dojo. Of course, they are reprising their roles from the Karate Kid 1 and 2 films from the 80s. This is such a fun series. There's so much little fan service to it. It doesn't, for me, I'm a huge fan of the Karate Kid, so it's not overly gratuitous in terms of they're calling back to this from this film, or they're calling back to this from this movie, with these actors. But it's just a really nice mix of teen drama and angst, along with the nostalgia of seeing Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso and Chosen all kind of get along to try to fight the common enemy, which is Master Kreese. So this is a great show. It's a lot of fun. So I'm glad that it's back, and highly recommended for me for a more than nostalgia flashback. This next movie, Dave, this series I saw on Netflix is absolutely mind-blowing. Maybe you've heard of this documentary series called The Man with 1,000 Kids. It's brand new on Netflix.
I have heard this mentioned, and it was an intriguing headline, or title, I should say.
Right. Yeah, so I'll read the boiler here. Jonathan Mayer, a Dutch YouTuber who's accused of fathering more than 500 children, has defrauded people across the globe. That is putting it mildly.
Wow, that's crazy.
This series, okay, so he starts in being Dutch man. He goes on this website and puts it out there. This is before Facebook and social media were happening. I'm willing to help people. I've been fully vetted and tested, and they find these groups online that are seeking sperm donors because they're unable to have children. And you come to find out that this person on this website is a website he started himself, and it's only him. All these other donors, he made up profiles for all of them, but it's only him. And he tells these people that he's only fathering 5 families, that way he's trying to help these people. He tries to come across as very genuine and personable when he's got a God complex. He goes to the other sperm banks and makes weekly deposits and all this. And you're only supposed to have so many because of the possibility of spoiling the local gene pool. Well, he not only did that where he is in that European region, he goes to every country in Europe. He not only goes to every country in Europe, he goes to the United States, he goes to Canada, he goes to Mexico, he goes to the Ukraine, he goes to Africa, he goes to literally every continent on the face of the earth and makes deposit after deposit after deposit after deposit. And he has a YouTube channel that he posts his travel exploits and what he's been doing. And over time, it's not just about his exploits. It's about teaching his children who will find him. He may not be able to find all of his children or they've spent time with their father, but ultimately they're going to get to know him through his YouTube channel, and he's passing on words of wisdom. And he finally got caught after all of this stuff happens, and they take him to court, and you realize that this guy has a God complex. He wants to reseed the earth, and not just him, but like several other people. They have a scam to try to reseed the earth, and that is the most insane thing with hundreds of thousands, Dave.
That's insanity. I mean, how much do they pay you to make a deposit?
Not enough.
I mean, come on.
Not enough.
What did this guy do for a living?
I don't know. I think he was in Bitcoin and different things of that nature. So, but he started doing this, back in the late 90s, 2000s. So there's children out there. No.
Let me ask you, would you ever sell your jam?
No.
No, you wouldn't do it.
No.
I wouldn't. It's never crossed my mind. It's never crossed my mind to do that.
I bet your listeners had never thought they'd be hearing this conversation on Skull Rock Podcast.
Really?
I never thought I'd be having it either, but here we are.
But something I would consider it, for a friend, if somebody I knew needed it. I nobody's ever asked, but I mean, if somebody asked me, I would certainly consider it.
Yeah, I don't know. It seems. Look, this whole situation is beyond messed up, and not only that, but he actually took advantage of some of these poor women that were desperate to have a child. And there are only several ways that you can conceive a child, and so you draw your own conclusions. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it's absolutely hideous what this man has done to these families. But
do they think he has 1,000 kids?
Oh, it's not a thing. He's got all the information, and of course, the sperm bank has records of all this across the globe.
Wow.
So basically the judge had put a stop to it and said that, by you leaving the country is a violation of your parole and you cannot donate anymore. And you have to, all of the samples across the world have to be destroyed because he's tampered with
but like what law did he break?
You're only supposed to donate X amount. Like there's a law where you can only donate X amount of times and have successful things because of the health repercussions of all of this.
Right. So what is it like? Is it a half pint? Is it a pint?
No,
how much do you donate?
Oh, now it's like a Sherwin-Williams. Listen. It's there's like a number attached to it. I'm not a jurisprudence kind of person, but it's all located in there. Yeah. This is a crazy. It's only like 3 episodes of a documentary.
I've got to watch it. This sounds insane.
It's insane. In the map, you can see like they literally track his movements with a map, and you can see it all pop up. It's insanity. Wow. It's truly insane. Well, other than that, of course, the boys had reached their end, and I go on and on about the show. Love the show. It's crazy how it kind of mirrors, events that are happening with whatever side politically you're on. The Boys is just a very interesting show about how true power corrupts, and then of course evil as well. Another great kind of awesome. Take into ghost busting and paranormal with a funny twist. So it's all good. But anyway, that's what we've been watching this week. How about you all? Let us know in the comments, and we'll check them out in a future episode.
Skull Rock Podcast. This week in Disney and pop culture.
All right. Dave mentioned the Twisters in theaters, and it looks like it's been doing great at the box office, whopping up a $74.6 million domestic opening. Not too bad for a bunch of tornadoes ripping through theaters, Dave.
Well, I would say I just got this, and I've tried to update our notes, but I don't think it updated on your side unless you refresh.
Oh, okay.
Because Twisters has whipped up a huge storm with a record 80.5 million at the domestic opening. So it exceeded what they thought it was going to be.
Wow.
And I have to say, Aljon, when I was in the IMAX theater to see this, there were more people in the IMAX theater than I would normally see when I go to see an IMAX film. So this film has resonated with the public. People want to see it.
Wow.
So there you have it.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations to Twisters. I mean, you know, it's great that once again, people are going to the box office to see these big movies and going out in a big way. Go out there and have fun. Well, I tell you, we've been talking about artificial intelligence here for months on Skull Rock Podcast. Just go back in the show archives and check out our conversations with Dave Zabowski, former Disney creative, filmmaker. Dave and I and Dave, the Daves, if you will, go down a big rabbit hole. But this recently popped up in my thread. Companies with open AI have been scraping the internet, including YouTube, to help train the AI algorithm without the creator's consent. Now, this happens to go against Google's terms of use because all of the content creators who make these great videos and documentaries, they own their content. And recently, Apple, Nvidia, and Anthropic used thousands of swiped YouTube videos to train their AI algorithm, and that's illegal. And the reason why YouTube hasn't made anything about it is because apparently and allegedly they are doing it themselves. Dave,
Yeah.
What do you think about all this?
You know, it's the Wild West out there right now with all of this, you know, and they do have to put some kind of regulation in, and content creators and artists need to be compensated in some way if their art or their videos or whatever are being scraped. You know, this is something that they have to wrangle with. And by the way, AI, there's an edge starting to cool on this, because I have to say, AI is not going to replace everybody anytime soon. You know, these large language models that they're training, it's going to be a long time before they're at a place where you can actually get what you want out of them. You know, I met up with a friend of mine, an artist, and we were talking about AI, and she said to me, hey, you know, I've tried a couple of these AI programs, and, you know, they're not giving me what I want, you know, and so, you know, and she is an accomplished artist who has a great eye, you know, and so, you know, we had this long conversation that, you know, these are tools that are developing, and they're tools that have to be used by artists that know what they're doing, not by, you know, some MBA sitting in an office who says, you know, write me a script of a rom-com, you know what I mean? Because you're just going to get regurgitated stuff that's already been done out of these things. So, you know, for me, it's absolutely wrong that these companies are using other people's creations, and they need to do something about it.
You know, I use AI now daily, Dave. I actually use AI daily because I write copy, you know, but I write it all first, and then I use it, you know, in terms of suggestive writing, you know, so you know, I pop in whatever I write, and then it comes out with different things based on what my style of writing is, and then I'll further tweak it because it's not right, you know, but it does give me some great ideas, you know. But in terms of like using YouTube, and like even the music for this program is made by AI, but I prompt it and I have an idea of what I like, and of course it takes me days to come up with something that's, you know, somewhat decent, even though, you know, you're still tweaking it. But
Right.
In this particular case, how hard is it for the company just to simply ask the creators, we like your content a lot, would you mind us using your content to train our AI and at least compensating them a little bit for all the hard work that they do? I got this particular video essay from one of my favorite YouTubers called NerdSync, and I've been a subscriber for years, because I love his video essays on pop culture and comic books. And it's a shame that, when you're making content like he is, he said that he'd been making content because he and his wife, they need to support their family, and they were on vacation, and here he is trying to spend time to create content on his vacation because they need food to eat, right? They were, and I remember doing this as well. I making podcasts in my hotel room and podcast after podcast after podcast, just because I loved it and I didn't want to and be consistent about it. And I'd go to Disney, and I was always representing Disney, doing press and stuff for Disney. And we would stay up night after night during conventions, uploading stuff and doing vlogs and writing and doing podcasts. And it's hard when you take your job seriously. All it needs is for someone to just ask and compensate them just a little bit. These are these huge tech companies, and I think it's wrong. They should just ask them and compensate them a little bit for their time.
But here's the thing, Aljon. This is going to continue to happen until there's some sort of legislation or regulation that gets put into place. And in between now and then, there's just going to be lawsuits left and right that are going to have to deal with this stuff. And that's what it boils down to.
In this time of transparency, companies are being called out because they're not being transparent. And they're not even operating within their own guidelines, user agreements. So, you're going to get caught because these people are smart. So just don't do it. Ask permission. Bob Iger and Willow Bay reached deal to buy Angel City Football Club. What is up with this, Dave? I mean, everybody wants to buy a sports club now.
Honestly, I think Bob and his wife are looking beyond Disney. To be engaged and stay active. And this was a great investment for them.
Now, this LA-based women's soccer club will now be the most valuable sports team in the world. That is wild. And congratulations to Bob and Willow for the investment.
The most valuable women's soccer
team. That's right.
Let's put it that way.
Yes.
Okay.
That's right. That's right. Speaking of valuable people, Oracle CEO Safra Catz exits the Disney board of directors. According to the Hollywood Reporter, she had been on the entertainment company's board since 2018. You see people starting to jump ship. What was this all about? And is this a harbinger for things to come?
Something that, board members come and go from organizations for various reasons. I don't think you should read anything into this, with the exception that, you have somebody rotating out. It's interesting when you have other CEOs on boards of other companies, as some people may have pointed out. Being the CEO of a company is a full-time gig. Do you really have time to be on another board? Maybe when you retire as the CEO of a company, you have more time to be on other boards. But I think, Mary Barra, who's the CEO of GM, is on the board of directors of the Walt Disney Company. Mm-hmm. She's got a full-time gig. Does she really have time to weigh in on stuff at Disney?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and maybe I didn't read in the article if she divested any of her interest in the company, but, that's what happens. These big shareholders, they go in and out. Bob Newhart in our passings for this week. Man, what a legend of comedy and of the small screen. Dies at the age of 94. Dave.
We skipped a couple of things.
We did?
Well, we skipped Dune Prophecy.
Oh, my bad.
Let's talk about that.
Let's talk about that. Sorry.
I had no idea that they were doing a Dune TV show.
Yes.
And so the Dune Prophecy will premiere in November. and they dropped the trailer for it. It actually looks pretty good.
To me, yes, it looks great. It's amazing to me what they're going to be and how they're going to be able to make the effects and the visuals and the costumes and do it on such a budget for streaming. You know, it's amazing to me how much studios are spending on these TV properties. Marvel has done it. Obviously, Disney and Lucasfilm have done it. But this show looks pretty amazing, Dave. So...
Yeah, it really does. Anyway, let's get back to our obituary roll call.
Oh my gosh.
I know. Oh. Really, we should almost put theme music underneath this.
I almost should. It should be its own separate. And there's a funeral.
All right, who died this week, Aljon?
The funeral dirge for this week. Bob Newhart, as I mentioned. Dying at the age of 94, of course, this is a heavyweight legend of the small screen. Bob Newhart show. Newhart for decades and decades and generations. Bob Newhart has been the beloved comedic performer with all of his shows being on CBS, seemingly. Like I said, he's been on for decades and decades. Dave, what can you say about Bob Newhart, a comedic legend?
Well, I think our younger listeners will probably know Bob Newhart as Will Ferrell's father in Elf.
Yes.
Right. So, yes. But back in the day, he had an incredible sitcom, the Bob Newhart Show. That was a really terrific sitcom. And when that ended, they created the show Newhart.
Yeah.
Where a New York author turned proprietor of the Stratford Inn in Vermont. And that ran for 8 seasons. And that was a very funny show, if you remember it.
Oh, yeah.
They had, Larry, Daryl, and their other brother, Daryl, as the local, handymen,
the local yokels
of the inn. It was a very funny show. Anyway, he had a fantastic life. I mean, 94 years old. He had a very robust 6-7 decade career as a comedian. And by the way, I think he was the first comedian ever to win a Grammy for a comedy album.
I was going to say that. Very good. Yes. Yeah. I mean, prolific. When I think of comedy legends from the 80s and 90s, I think of people like Betty White and Bob Newhart, and man, he'll be missed. What a great showman for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, speaking of great men, Lou Dobbs, former CNN and Fox business anchor, dies at the age of 78. Once again, just one of the news pundits, the talking heads that really is a journalist with some integrity. You go back to legendary figures in the news. You look at the Dan Rathers and people like that. Lou Dobbs definitely is on that list for sure. He was one of CNN's original anchors who later worked at Fox Business, and he passed away at the age of 78, Dave. I mean, prolific.
Yeah, he was one of these guys that he was anchoring a number of business news programs on the various cable networks. And very smart guy. I enjoyed watching his commentaries when it was related to business.
Yes.
And he later got, he had the Lou Dobbs financial report, and he anchored Moneyline on CNN for many years, which I thought was always a terrific program from an investing standpoint. He later became, I think, a little bit more polarized with politics and political commentary. But boy, 78, that's kind of young in my mind.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Absolutely. I remember the Dobbs report for sure. Always watching that on CNN. Good stuff right there. How about this? Whitney Rydbeck, Friday the 13th actor and crash test dummy, in seatbelt ads, dies at the age of 79. And this gentleman from the physical comedies laid out in different works like Cagney and Lacey, MASH, and Sleeper, and so many others. He also portrayed one of the paintball victims in Jason Lives Friday the 13th, Part 6. I do remember that. But Dave, this is once again, an actor that not a whole lot of people know. Maybe they recognize his face, but they're in Hollywood. There's so many different roles and people that need to be cast in those roles, and he's just one of those actors that has made a career of being one of these actors in different roles throughout his life.
Yeah, he's a terrific character actor. I think he's been known for those public service announcements that had run for many years about promoting seatbelt safety. Yes. And he played one of the two test dummies, Larry and Vince.
Love that.
Were their names in those
crash test dummies. I love it.
Those public service announcements, what I thought was really funny was, he was always worried that one day a newspaper would carry the headline, "Actor who played crash dummy died for not buckling up." So he said he always buckled up. I'll tell you that, he said. Hey, listen, again, 79, not that old. I think that's still young in my book.
This is true. Well, rest in peace to all those actors that we mentioned this week. Now it's time for our main event. Let's get into it with part 2, right here on Skull Rock Podcast with our esteemed guest, Mark Kausler. Enjoy.
Let's do it.
Skull Rock Podcast is made possible by listeners like you. We want to thank Randall Lynch, Spencer Wright, Lindsay Skyfay, and Joshua Volkert. Please support our show for as little as 99 cents a month by clicking the link in our show notes. Thank you for listening.
Skull Rock Podcast. Interview time.
Well, Aljon, we're back again for week 2. This is episode 2 with the great legendary animator, Mark Kausler. Mark, welcome back to the Skull Rock Podcast.
I'm very happy to be back.
Hey, listen, Mark, last week we kind of ended with really a revelation for me. I had no idea that you had applied at Disney 13 times back in the 70s, and you didn't get in, but you ultimately did get hired onto Oliver and Company. Can you talk about how that all came about?
Sure. Yeah, I was working for Brad Bird on a picture called Family Dog, which was supposed to be a theatrical short. And I think it wound up being a television special, actually, about a 30-minute long TV special. And I did several scenes on that for Brad with the little dog pushing his supper dish along the ground, and it hits the mother right in the leg. She is really upset about that. And then I also did a lot of the burglars. There was a fat burglar, I think, and a thin burglar with a long pointed nose. And they were running around and had a good time working on that stuff. Well, somebody, I don't know who it was, saw my stuff on the dog and said, "Hey, we've got a picture coming up that's got a whole lot of dog characters in it. Maybe you'd like to try something on that." I said, "Sure, of course." Something I've been wanting to do all my life, practically, was do something with Disney. So, I jumped at the chance to do it. And they put me in a cubicle with Kevin Lima, and it was kind of a tiny space. It was over there, near Sonora.
Flower Street.
On Flower Street, where the old Glendale Airport used to have been back in the 30s.
Yeah, right across from Imagineering.
Right. And I never actually got to see anybody at Imagineering. I stuck to my last pretty well. And the first guy I worked with was Glenn Keane. And they put me in with him. And I don't know what he was expecting, but I guess I didn't quite come up to expectations, because the the first little scene I got, this was a sequence with Fagin and the Dobermans.
Uh-huh.
And there was a hanging lamp, an office lamp, that swung back and forth like this. And I worked that and worked that and worked that. And Glenn just wasn't happy with it. And then I found out it wasn't so much the animation that was the problem, it was the staging. He didn't like the angle that it was done at. Well, I was so green, I didn't know that a Disney animator could beg to change the staging if you wanted to,
Yeah.
If something wasn't working out, you say, well, let's do a new layout sketch, or let's do a new a story sketch and see if we can fix this. Well, I didn't know I had the power to do that, so I just didn't say much. And then I did this scene with the couple of the Dobermans sort of stalking. It was a 3/4 down shot, one of the hardest angles there is to animate. You're looking down on the Dobermans on their backs, and their legs and their paws have to sort of taper a bit in perspective,
Yeah, yeah.
I had done relatively little realistic animation of dogs, So I was struggling with it a lot, and Glenn helped me. He showed me some roughs, and I tried to fix it up the best I could. And finally, it got to the point where it was okay. But Glenn wasn't happy. He thought I wasn't working up to my potential. So he turned me into Ed Hansen and said,
no.
well, I don't think I can work with this guy. But Ed, even though I had not had the best of relationships with him when I was trying to get into Disney, when I was actually there, he was really nice. And he said, well, we can put you with somebody else, And then I wound up working with Hendel Butoy, who was doing some sequences on Oliver. So I did some work on a butler character, a butler that was going through a window and getting stuck. He was so fat. He was stuck in the window and he couldn't get out. So I guess I did okay on that stuff. So then right along about that time, I'm getting out of sequence now. Before I got involved with Family Dog and all that, I may be wrong about the year, but I worked on the storyboards with Joe Ranft for Roger Rabbit. And Joe and I worked on the Amblin lot. We worked in the trailers in the back of the Amblin lot on the boards. And Dick Williams.
So was it the Tummy Trouble short, or was it?
Oh, no, this is the feature.
Okay, so you were probably doing that before Oliver and Company. I mean, yes. Oliver and Company was kind of going concurrently.
Right.
With Who Framed
So I worked there for I think we worked there almost 6 or 7 months on these boards.
Yeah.
And we did the Toontown sequence. We did that several times. We did the Marvin Acme funeral, which they didn't use.
Right.
We did a school. I really had fun with the dumb school, all the dumb characters, like Baby Huey and Dopey and all these guys going to school and they can't get anything right, Mm-hmm. And we had a lot of fun doing that. And I boarded some of the vacuum cleaner stuff, the Suckalux vacuum cleaner, that Roger gets blown up in.
Sure.
So I did a lot of those story sketches, and we worked with the writers, Peter Seaman and Jeff Price. And Seaman and Price were extremely guarded about their writing. They jealously guarded their position as the head screenwriters on Roger. Well, Joe and I came up with the booby trap gag, where the weasel reaches down Jessica's cleavage and gets a big bear trap snapped on his hand. And that's stolen from a Woody Woodpecker cartoon I saw once. So we did that, and we had to write that. We wrote the dialogue in it. And Seaman and Price got really mad at us because they didn't want us to write it. They said, you guys are cartoonists. They're not writers. We're the writers. What are you guys doing? So Bob Zemeckis came in. They created such a stir. Bob Zemeckis came in and saw what we did. And he laughed. And he said, just put it in the script. So just put it in the script. We don't care. So they got very loose about it. So that was really fun, that we could, every once in a while, if we saw a place to stick a little gag line or something, we could write it. They didn't care. They didn't harp on us for that.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say that is sort of the basis of animation? When back in the early days in the 20s and 30s, they would be boarding something out and they would be writing the script as they were doing it.
Sure.
And that's how a lot of the early Disney shorts and the Fleischer and all of the animators that were working during that period, that's how they were shaping their shorts and ultimately how Walt was constructing features.
That's right. Because they were cartoonists. They were still used to the storyboard process. They weren't scripting yet. I don't think Snow White ever got a formal script, or did it?
Well, it was after the fact. You know, and that's the only thing I could think of, you know,
right.
Because you had a draft and the draft had everything in it, you know. So
anyway, it was fun doing that, and it had an interesting thing happen with Chuck Jones. Chuck Jones was going to do the Daffy Donald sequence, and Dick Williams was going to do Daffy, or no, Dick Williams was going to do Donald, and Chuck was going to do Daffy. Okay,
right.
They were on stage together, and Chuck, his business with the characters was to basically stare at each other with jealousy or stupidity, and bow to the audience a lot, and business like that. And Zemeckis went nuts when he saw that, because he wanted to see frantic activity. You know, he says, we can't use this. You know, we keep them in the air. He said, my motto is keep them in the air. You know, keep them going, keep them crazy. So Joe Ramsden and I reboarded that whole thing and did the piano duet. You know, where they blow up things with cannons, and Dave Spafford animated Daffy in that sequence, and he had Daffy playing the piano with a dead chicken. Spaff really came up with some off the wall ideas.
Yeah, and by the way, he talks about that because I think we did like a 5-part interview with him.
Holy cow!
You know, so Dave actually talked about that. So
right,
yeah, it's good stuff.
A madman with ideas.
Yeah,
sure was. But anyway, so we thought that was so strange, you know, and they actually fired Chuck Jones, and we had to step in and finish the sequence
for the better.
Like, speaking of Chuck Jones, I did a little freelance work for him very early on in my career, and right around 1971 or so. Worked on the pumpkin that couldn't smile. I did some animation on that, and then I worked on a little Roadrunner short called Freezed Frame, which was part of the Looney Tunes Christmas special, I think. Bugs Bunny's Christmas Tales.
How was Chuck to work with at that point?
Very strange.
Really?
He let Mary Roscoe, his production administrator, really kind of do all the liaison work between the animators and Chuck. Chuck actually handed out a sequence of the little mouse in The Pumpkin That Couldn't Smile, writing a letter. And it was an upshot. You couldn't really see the pencil on the paper. You could see the mouse struggling with a giant pencil. That's a scene that I did. Then, but on the Roadrunner, I did a horrible faux pas. I actually showed the Roadrunner's legs, not as an egg beater style blur, but so you could actually see the legs, because the way the scene was timed, it was like more than 3 seconds long as the Roadrunner runs across the scene with the coyote hiding behind a rock. And I thought, well, surely he wouldn't be running fast here. You'd see his legs. He'd be loping along, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the way I did it. But when Chuck saw that, he had a cow, literally. He said, no, we never, ever show the Roadrunner's legs. Always an egg beater shape. You know? And he says, you're fired. And then
really,
I came into Mary Roscoe, you know, and I said, you know, I would be very happy to fix this whole thing for nothing, gratis. I'd be happy to do it. He says, no, we've run out of patience with you, young man, and that will be enough. So that was the end of that.
Wow.
I really wanted to work with Chuck too. I wanted to ask him a lot of questions and stuff, but I think Chuck was getting to the point where it was an annoyance. His career had become an annoyance to him. He stayed in his office most of the time and wouldn't come out.
Huh.
So that was very sad, because I got off to a good start with him on the first picture, but when I hit Freezed Frame, then we had some problems.
But getting back, you worked with the great Joe Ranft.
Joe Ranft
on Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Joe had
you also were working on Oliver and Company.
Right, that was a little later.
Yeah,
but Joe had infinite patience as a story guy. I mean, he could, you know, they could just tear his stuff to pieces, and he didn't give a darn. You
Yeah.
just throw it in the waste can.
Yeah.
He had such a wonderful attitude.
He was a very wonderful person.
He sure was.
I so after that,
Mhm.
you stuck with Disney for a little bit.
Well, what happened was the Dale Bear, who I went to school with, I was there the first day he walked into Chenard, and I showed him around. I said, "This is the Disney test camera. Here's all the desks." He says, "Oh yeah." He was very interested, you know. So he started at Chenard about the same time I was there. So years later, I wound up in his unit, working on, I think it was on Sonora, doing a big hunk of the Toontown stuff because Dick Williams, as usual, you know, is a consummate artist and, you know, he works very, very hard, but he tends to be a little on the slow side. So Zemeckis and the group were tearing their hair out. He said, "We'll never get this picture done." So they got Dale and Jane, his wife at the time,
Yep.
to head up a unit. And we got
Yeah.
a big chunk of the Toontown sequence to do.
Well,
And I wound up
the whole
doing,
two town sequence, really. I mean,
right.
they were basically doing that in Los Angeles. I worked on Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but I worked in London.
Ah, very good.
Yeah, in
Very.
the Camden Town studio in London. But yeah, I believe me, I remember all of the hair pulling that was going on to try and get the
Yeah.
film finished.
Bob Zemeckis was very nervous.
Yeah.
He came one night and he said, "You guys, you got to help me. Do anything you can. I don't care. Just, you know, just work. Get this done. We've got to get this picture finished."
Yeah, everybody
So,
was under a lot of pressure.
so what the
Lot of
English
pressure.
translation, free overtime. That was the English translation of that. So we got the hint.
Yeah,
You know, we put as much time in it as we possibly could.
sure.
And I did the Tweety sequence, the Droopy sequence, and I did the sequence where Benny runs through Dip on the street and his wheels melt, and he's walking along, you know.
Yeah.
And then Roger's in a car, and he says, "Roger, you've done enough driving for one night." And he pushes him aside, and Benny the cab gets in a real car and drives away. I thought there was a lot of humor in that.
A lot of fun.
I got a big kick out of
The droopy dog in the elevator was hilarious.
Yeah, that was my sequence too.
Yeah, that was awesome stuff.
We had a good
But
time doing it.
what else? Yeah, you went on to you worked on Michael and Mickey.
Yeah, I did some animation on that, but that was done in Florida.
Yeah, and then back
That
to
was not done in
Neverland.
Los Angeles. When I came out of the Roger Rabbit unit, there was still some scenes left from Oliver and Company that needed help.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I jumped in and helped on those.
I mean, the funny story is that I was working on Oliver and Company, and I left. I went to Ireland and did Land Before Time for 9 months. And then I rejoined Disney in London on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. When I finished Who Framed Roger Rabbit and I came back to Los Angeles, they were just finishing Oliver and Company.
Wow.
And Little Mermaid was starting to, get going.
Mhm.
So that was the funny bit. I went off and did 2 pictures while they were still finishing that one.
Right. There was a
But
painstaking effort.
yeah, but Michael and Mickey, I mean, a portion of it was done in Los Angeles. It wasn't all done in Florida.
Okay.
Because I remember doing a little work on that myself, you know. But back to Neverland.
I worked on that too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and that wasn't that done. That was done for the Florida studio, but it was done in Los
It was
Angeles.
done in Los Angeles. Yeah. Right. And I got to animate a little bit of Peter Pan himself in that, and some of Captain Hook, and
You
a
got
lot
to
of-
work. You got to work with Jerry Reese.
Oh yeah, well Jerry was terrific on that. He knew all the nuts and bolts of Peter Pan. You know, he knew the whole feature, and he knew what to call for, and he knew how to criticize it, and yeah, he was really really good. He was a great guy to work with.
But you stuck around because I mean you worked on Tommy Trouble,
Yes, I boarded on it and I animated on it.
and have you been doing mostly boarding or animating at this point, or are you
Just
kind of
trading off
bouncing back and
forth.
forth between
Yeah.
the two, right?
Yeah, I would work boarding stuff, and then I didn't board Trail Mix Up. Oddly enough, Pat Ventura did most of the board on
Uh-huh.
Trail Mix. A lot of that was his. And then Roller Coaster Rabbit, I did some of the board, but that was the one we did in Florida. We
Right.
took the whole production down there and opened the Disney MGM studio.
And did you go?
I went there and I worked there 7 months.
Wow. How'd you
They
like
had to
working?
start the whole picture over.
How'd you like working down there for 7 months?
It took me about a month and a half to get used to being looked at all the time.
Oh, in
But walk through guests,
fish
you know?
bowl, the fish bowl.
Yes, the fishbowl. It took me a little while to get used to that fishbowl, but my wife really seemed to like it, and she loved to play the piano. So she would be in the story room playing the piano.
Now, does your wife work in animation?
She's made her own film, but she has not worked formally in the industry.
Oh, okay.
But she has. Here's one of her comic books,
The Mad Raccoons collection. Oh,
nice. She did this entire book, and
Wow.
she did 7 issues of Mad Raccoons. And this was a little comic published independently. It sold at the San Diego Comic-Con many years.
Well,
it was done by the Mew Press people.
That's awesome.
This little comic book. And Kathy and I worked together on some of the stories on it. She did every drawing in it. All of this is her work.
Wow.
Mad Raccoon statue. But anyway, she's a very good cartoonist. She's a fine arts oil painter. She's exhibited with the California Art Club. She's done so many things. I mean, she is.
Where did you meet her?
My inspiration, you know.
Where did you meet her?
I met her through the Los Angeles Science Fantasy Society, LOSFAS, and also I saw her in various movie theater shows we went to. I would see her from a distance, you know.
Ah.
And
so you had similar interests.
Right. Yeah. We kind of gravitated together because she's such a wonderful artist. And so, you know, we had a lot of fun working together on little things and like that. So that's how we met.
Very nice. Now, getting back to your career, animation wise, you did Michael and Mickey, you did Back to Neverland, you did Tummy Trouble down in Florida, and then did you work?
And don't forget Beauty and the Beast.
I'm not going to forget Beauty and the Beast because I'm not there yet. I was
okay.
gonna say,
see, I get all mixed up on the dates.
Sorry. No, Beauty and the Beast comes later because Tummy Trouble's 89, Beauty and the Beast is 91.
Okay, see, I've forgotten that.
But did you do anything on Little Mermaid?
No, I did not.
Okay, because they've got you as uncredited as an animator on Little Mermaid here.
No.
All right, so you didn't do anything on that.
Didn't get hired on that one, no.
So when you came back from Florida after doing Roller Coaster Rabbit, what did you work on? Did you work on Prince and the Pauper?
Yes, I did.
There you go.
For George Scribner.
Whew.
As we used to call him.
They got
Uncle
one
George.
right. They got one right.
yeah, I used to call him Uncle George. Yeah, George is he's quite a good painter himself, you know.
Oh, he's a very good painter, and he's a dear friend.
Yeah, Kathy and I met him on the trail at various paint outs we went to. And there was George.
Yeah,
these beautiful sort of turquoise colors and magentas and sort of cream yellows. He said, all these are colors that I learned to use in Panama, where he grew up. You know.
Yeah.
And he did a really beautiful job. But Prince and the Pauper was a strange project. It went through very, very fast, as I recall. And the favorite staging of George in that picture was 3/4 downs. He used a lot of 3/4 downs. And as I told you, like when I was talking about Oliver,
they're hard.
That's a tough angle to animate from.
Yeah.
Very hard, especially if you have a lot of characters. Like the weasels were in that. And we had stuff with Goofy and Donald and Mickey all together. I animated one scene that I had a lot of fun with where Goofy is searching for the right key to let them out of prison. And he said, no, not this one. Oh, not this one. He's going through all the keys on the keychain. So I had a lot of fun with that scene. And I think Dale Bear was working on that picture too. Pretty sure he animated on that one.
Dale was a great guy. He was an early bird like I was, so we would always chat early in the morning. It'd be like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning at the studio. There'd be nobody around. It would just be sort of Dale and I walking over to the commissary, you know. So
right.
So from Prince and the Pauper, how was your experience on that? Because I think it's a wonderful little featurette.
They gave me a character to do, the owl.
Mm-hmm.
The owl bishop, I think he was.
Yeah.
think he marries somebody. It's been so long now since I've seen it. I forgot who he marries. And they gave me the whole sequence to do with the owl. And I remember Peter Schneider sort of being a cheerleader on it for some reason. Says, "You can do it. You can do it." I said, "What do you mean I can do it? Of course I can do it." Maybe I wasn't doing it fast enough for his, purposes. I don't know. But I thought he became a cheerleader every once in a while.
Well, that's what a good leader does.
I guess so. He was leading the cheers for the owl.
He's putting out the positive vibes to everybody.
Right. With Ruben Aquino on the Beauty and the Beast stuff, we did Belle's dad,
Maurice, the old man.
Crazy old Maurice. And
crazy old Maurice.
It was interesting that Ruben and Eldon Woodbury and some of the people that worked with him had a sort of very serious approach to him. They thought of him more as a very heavy Geppetto, and they were going to animate him very gently, But Jeffrey didn't like that. Jeffrey Katzenberg. He said, "This guy, he's a crazy guy. He's an inventor. He should be bouncing off the ceilings. He should be tearing the place to pieces. We got to get some comedy in this." So one of the first scenes that he's in, he was inventing something, and an explosion goes off. And
that's the wood chopping machine.
He's in the barrel.
In the basement. Yeah.
Yeah, he's in a barrel, stuck in a barrel.
Yeah.
Barrel falls apart, and he's got the steel hoop of the barrel around his waist, and there's barrel staves, and he wiggles almost like a Hawaiian dancer, and the barrel. Yeah. That was my scene, and they go back and forth and back and forth. And I did some of the stuff where he first comes into the castle and he's real nervous, looking around. Yeah. And then I did the scene where he's trying to get the townspeople excited about rescuing Belle, from the beast. And he's going and shaking them by the collar. And that was the wacky part of him. That was about as wacky as we could get with crazy old Maurice.
Yeah, I want to ask you this question because Beauty and the Beast was, sort of a seminal film from the standpoint that it was the first animated feature to crack $100 million at the domestic box office.
Right.
The theater owners were telling the studio that, they were filling up evening screenings. It was becoming date movies to go to see these animated films from that period. And, because you started on Yellow Submarine, did you see that kind of whole shift happening, that sort of rebirth of interest in animation by the movie-going public?
We never had that perspective on it.
You didn't?
Most of us that worked on Beauty and the Beast made fun of it.
Really?
Yeah,
why were you making fun out of it?
We didn't think it was going to be any great shakes. I guess we didn't have a great deal of respect for the music yet. We hadn't really heard the music as much as we should have.
Right.
And we made a lot of fun out of it. And we made gag drawings of the Beast and Beauty and all kinds of crazy stuff.
Well, I mean, but isn't that part of animation culture? I mean, there's cynicism, there's pranks, there's doing the funny caricatures and making fun out of different things, right? I mean, that's always been sort of there in the animation industry.
That's right. Yeah, we were more on the making fun of side. I remember a couple of times when I can't remember the guy's name today. He used to like to dress up like chipmunks and did a lot of crazy antics. And he got Glenn to run little electric race cars around the studio. And he also made these catapults out of rubber, like a giant rubber, a rubber slingshot.
Yes,
and he would put food in those rubber slingshots, and he would snap it across the whole room, that they were making Beauty and the Beast in, and
across the whole building, essentially.
Oh God, that was so funny. Yeah, it was a way of letting off pressure,
It was Sean Keller.
Sean Keller.
That
wasn't that his last name?
Yeah,
yes,
Sean Keller.
Very good. You remember. Yeah, yes. Sean was a panic. Funny guy.
Yeah, he was a riot. There's a lot of funny stories about him.
Yeah, I helped him make a Bugs Bunny suit. He said, "I hear you're the master of Bugs Bunny, So I came over to his place and helped him sculpt a Bugs Bunny head that he wore for several gag appearances.
That's
He liked Bugs
great.
Bunny a lot. He even drew the Bugs Bunny comic strip for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. He there's a funny story about him when they were doing contracts for the animators. He went in to meet with the guy Bill in personnel, who always wore a suit, had a sports jacket and tie on,
Yes.
and Sean went in for his appointment with a Freddy Krueger hat on and the Freddy Krueger glove with the blades on the fingers, and he was kind of rolling his fingers on the desk as Bill was trying to explain the contract to him. So yeah, it was
He just couldn't be serious.
lot of funny stories there.
One of the perks that Sean got for re-signing with the studio was a pair of night vision goggles. Do you remember that?
That he asked for, right?
Yeah, he wanted some so badly. He wanted a pair of night vision goggles, and they gave them to him. And he had a ball with those, running around at night trying to spy on people. And what a nut!
Yeah, really.
But we really had fun.
What else do you remember about working on Beauty and the Beast?
I might have. I don't know if I did any story sketch on that or not, but I remember some of the scenes were based on live action. We would start out with a stat, and we would draw the characters over the stat, and then we would use stats a little bit to guide the animation. So some of it was actually based on live,
Right.
parts of Sleeping Beauty and parts of Snow White and things like that.
Yeah, they were using it for reference,
But we didn't do a whole lot of it.
not to do true rotoscoping.
Right.
You weren't tracing over it, but you were using it for Belle and the Beast dancing in the ballroom, to really be able to aid the animators in.
I'll bet they had some reference on that sequence.
Yeah, absolutely. With Beauty and the Beast, what were your impressions when you think back when the film was completed and how it was received? Because it was a huge success.
Well, then we kind of pretended that we'd liked it all along, Yeah,
as animators would do, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We forgot. Oh, what you mean? We used to call it Beauty and the Sleeve or something like that. No. We never did that. We always thought it was good. So but I appreciated the fact that people seemed to like it so much, and that's very good.
Now, what did you go on to after Beauty and the Beast?
Wow. And then it was many years devoted to Fantasia Continued, as they called it then. I might be leaving some stuff out here, but
I tell you, your IMDb says you worked on Ren and Stimpy, Tiny Toons, Trail Mix Up. Did you do work on Ren and Stimpy?
Yes, I did, just a little bit. I worked on an episode called Stimpy's Invention, and it's the Happy Helmet episode.
Yes.
And that was the only episode that was animated in LA. Everything else was shipped to South Korea.
That's right.
And Renegade was it not Renegade?
No, Spunko.
Yeah, but
over in Korea?
I can't remember the name of the production house that did it. They have an office on Brand Boulevard in Glendale. Yeah. It's still there, but I can't remember their name today. But anyway, you know the one I mean.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
But anyway, they did almost all the animation on Ren and Stimpy.
Yeah.
And I just did that stuff where where he's trying to crack the Happy Helmet off of his head with a hammer. And I did that sequence. And then I did Stimpy's butt dance, which John got a big kick out of. Writhing on his back with his butt shaking and all that. I did those two scenes in the
so you worked on that. That was an episode that you worked on when John Kay was still. It's the first half of the first season,
right? When they were handing it out.
Because John didn't make it past the halfway point of season 1.
Right, and then Games Animation did it.
And then it was taken over because I
never worked on any of the games.
Yeah, I wound up working on 4.5 seasons of the show.
Wow. I
Yeah.
had no idea you'd
Yeah.
done that much on it.
Yeah, I helped them out with the effects end of it because they were having a tremendous problem that first half of season one. They had like 90% retakes happening back from Korea because whoever was doing their sheets wasn't calling the stuff out properly, so they were getting things back where smoke effects were too opaque and you couldn't see the character animation, things like that. So I jumped in to help them out, and I was just really, I was doing a favor for a friend who was over there, and when I got there, John Kay actually pitched the show to me, and incredible pitch artist.
He was wonderful at it.
He
Yeah.
was unbelievable in the way he pitched the show.
He was so
But that was the
funny.
last time I saw him. He was
Yeah.
gone by the time I came back with the first batch of sheets that I timed out for them,
Oh, yeah.
and that was the end of it, So
Did you work with David Konigsberg on that
yeah,
show?
and Ron, oh, I can't remember his last name, who was one of the directors, and
Bob Camp?
and Bob Camp, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, absolutely. It was a great group of people, I mean, aside from the craziness that happened and the implosion of John Kay, it was still pretty fun. By the way, if you haven't
was fun.
seen it, there's a documentary on the Ren and Stimpy show.
Right. Yeah, I think I've seen some of that.
Yeah, and I watched that start to finish, and a lot of it was pretty true.
Uh-huh.
I think most of it was pretty true. It was an unvarnished documentary. It was as close as you're ever going to get to what happened.
Right.
So anyway, but let's get back to your career here.
Okay.
I see here you did work on Trail Mix Up,
Yes.
and what'd you do on that?
I animated the close-ups shot of Jessica in it. Where
Okay.
she's leaning over Roger, and I thought, oh boy, because I really wanted to do just one shot of her, like
Yeah.
Mark Henry was going to do every scene of her in the picture, and I asked Barry Cook, I think, who was the director.
Yeah, yeah.
I asked Barry, couldn't I have just one little scene of Jessica? I always wanted to try her, and he said, oh, all right. So I asked for the close-up. And wow, what a high-level executive meeting happened, because I showed her breasts rather large, because they were large.
Sure.
As she leans over Roger, they sort of precede her,
Yes, and you're getting a lot of comedy out of that.
Yeah, but they didn't like it.
No,
So
it was
they
too salacious.
accepted me, and they gave me drawings to use over mine. Said Jessica's breast reduction. You will reduce them.
It was
All
too
right.
it was too titillating for them, huh?
So we did it. I reduced them, but then sort of almost as she gets to the final shot, I sort of snuck them up and enlarged them a little bit again. They didn't notice it because it was just a few frames.
Yeah.
I got a little bit of comedy out of it anyway, just a little bit. But that was fun. I animated a few other things in that short as well, but I didn't get to board on it because that was Pat's.
Now, did you stick around after that, or did you?
That's when Fantasia Continued started up, and Pat and I wound up boarding the very first version of Pomp and Circumstance.
Oh, with the
did that.
prince, with all the princes and princesses marching.
A year.
Oh my God!
Whole year boarding that.
Oh my God!
drawings were
George Scribner was on that.
Yeah, I don't remember George being on it, but I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, I think George was actually going to direct on that sequence, and that just flamed out. I mean, honestly, I mean, when Michael Eisner suggested Pomp and Circumstance, there was like an audible groan almost, from people in the animation department, because it was like, really, and then the idea of having all the Disney princes and princesses marching to Pomp and Circumstance by Elgar. Yes. And they're all carrying their babies.
And Daisy Duck had a pillow with 7 little crowns on it, for each of the princes and princesses. And Roy E. Disney's wife cried.
Patty.
She saw the story reel. She loved it so much she cried. But then the rumor had it, you may correct me if you know better, was that Glenn Keane and a bunch of the guys went up to the executive's office. Maybe it was Roy Eves. I don't know. It says, of course, we're not going to animate this.
I don't know that story. All I know is that there was just a lot of people who were down on that version as like, there is no way any of us are working on that. And then they scrapped it and they came up with the Francis Glebus Noah's Ark version of what's in the film now.
And I animated on that.
Yeah.
On the stuff.
And I think that I something, as much as there was this sort of groan about the choice of music, doing the Noah's Ark story with that music really actually makes it work.
Because of the procession of animals.
Yes, absolutely.
And things like that in it. Yeah.
I thought, it's very well done.
I did the chain of animals, that fall out of the window.
Yes.
Ark, and there's alligators chained together, and all kinds of other creatures. And I did the tsunami wave of animals, where they crash, and the hippopotamus and the giraffes and everything crashes from one side of the boat to the other.
Yeah,
I got to do that scene.
And was that the only
scene with Donald?
Was that the only sequence you worked on? Was Pomp
No,
and
I mean
Circumstance?
it's scattered throughout. Little scenes of Donald. Where he swallows a whole bucket of fish and spits the fish out. I did that scene. And, little things like that. I didn't get to do too many of the close-ups and medium shots because, there was a whole squadron of Donald Duck guys that wanted to do that stuff. So they got to do those scenes.
Right.
But anyway, it was fun working on that picture. Yeah, Francis was the leading director.
Francis Glebus was the director, sequence director on that. Yeah. And then after Fantasia 2000?
What?
What'd you do after Fantasia 2000?
Well, we haven't quite come to the end of Fantasia 2000. I worked on, there was a lady named Sarah Petty who they hired.
Yes.
She did a wonderful short subject with some cats.
Yeah.
That was really nice.
And they assigned her to the Beethoven's Fifth sequence.
See, you know the whole story.
I was the artistic coordinator and visual effects supervisor on the movie.
Very good. Yeah. So she was trying to come up with stuff for that sequence.
Yes.
Yeah. I wound up doing development.
That was the one troubled sequence, I think, out of the whole film. That was the hardest nut to crack, was the Beethoven's Fifth sequence.
Right. Well, she certainly gave it the old try.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of experimental stuff. I remember we had these pencil test machines that could shoot in color, and I tried some negative effects, where we could actually press a button that said negative. We could switch red to green and violet to yellow and get all these sort of glowing, interesting colors. Yeah. I don't know how they could ever put that on film. I don't know if DCP or the digital technology was advanced enough at that point to do it. Now they could do it with no problem at all. But then it was a little bit, previous.
Yeah.
But we did a lot of that kind of stuff and tried really hard to get it going. I also boarded around that time a sequence in The Lion King, the original version of Hakuna Matata, which was the Warthog Rhapsody. A guy named Jim Capabianco and I boarded on that. And we did, the whole thing behind it was to get the little lion, Simba, to eat a bug.
That was it.
So Pumbaa and
now wait, was that for the Lion King film?
Yeah.
So that was so you're out of sequence here because you would have.
I'm sure I am.
Yeah. So that would have come before Pomp and Circumstance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I knew
you would have done that before Pomp and Circumstance on Fantasia, because Lion King came out in 94, right? So you would have been doing that then
before Fantasia 2000,
before Fantasia 2000. Yeah.
So, but anyway, we did that whole board for quite a while. Several months we worked on that. And that was another Katzenberg story. The morning we were going to pitch that to Jeffrey, he was in a terrible car accident and he was in a great deal of pain. And he had one of those collars on.
Yes.
So he couldn't move his neck. So we had to pitch him that whole board, the Warthog Rhapsody, when he was, very dour and he was not laughing that morning. He was in a very sour mood. So he turned thumbs down on the whole thing. And that's when they said, oh, well, let's just redo the music, and come up with a little bit different business. So that's when they did Hakuna Matata instead.
Yeah. Which is a great sequence in the film.
I don't know who boarded that, but whoever did a nice job on that sequence. So that was another little thing I did at Disney. And then after Fantasia 2000 came out, then I kind of came to the end of my rope.
You did. So, I'm going to say that is the perfect place for us to kind of end this episode.
Okay.
Because I think that when we come back, we're going to talk about after Fantasia 2000.
Fine.
Because there's still so much to talk about, Mark. And we're going to spend some time talking about your film collection.
Sure.
And all the different cool things that you have in your film collection. So with that, I'm going to say thank you very much, Mark, for being on the Skull Rock podcast. This is episode 2 of a multi-part series of interviews with you.
Round and round she goes. Where she stops, nobody knows.
There you go. We'll see you next week. Thank you very much, Mark.
Okay, well, you're so welcome, sir.
We're butted up here to the Disney travel deal of the week. Exciting times.
Yes, if you are traveling now through October 3rd and you are staying 5 nights or longer, you can save up to 30% on select Disney resort hotels. If you are choosing to stay less than 5 nights, you can save up to 25% on those shorter stays.
I like it.
And if Disney's Beach Club is a favorite, like it is for me, that is one that you can save up to 30% off.
I like it.
As well as the Riviera, which we were just talking about.
You know what I love out of this list where you can save 30% off? I mean, Boardwalk is one of my favorites. You talked about Old Key West. Yacht Club is also great. I mean, they're all great. I really liked it when we ended up doing Animal Kingdom over there at the villas and Animal Kingdom Lounge. Just such a beautiful, beautiful place. I don't know. If you've never checked it out, you really should. Definitely check it out and get all that expertise from Kristen because, been there, done that, want to help pass along the savings and all the great information and knowledge and save you that aggravation and time. By the way, want to save 25%, as you mentioned, Fort Wilderness Resort at the cabins is great. We have a friend that does that quite frequently and loves the cabins. That's something we haven't done before. So maybe one day we'll do it with the kids. That would be fun. That'd be really fun. Anyway, save that. Save money, save time, save aggravation when you book with Kristen there. You can also use her services and she could give you the best time on a cruise. We're going on another Royal Caribbean cruise. I cannot wait. The big ships are here and they are amazing. But not only that, Disney's about ready to launch the Disney Treasure, which is going to be the most technologically advanced and awesome ship in the entire fleet until they build the next one. So where can people book their next Disney vacation?
Well, they can book their next Disney vacation or a cruise because I know you want to go on a cruise, people. Right now, I'm all about cruising. Anyway, yes, you can contact me at themeparksandcruises@gmail.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Eddie Soto, former Disney Imagineer, welcoming you to the Skull Rock Podcast.
Skull Rock Podcast.
To infinity and beyond.
Exploring the outer reaches of the Disney galaxy.
Oh, wow, you flew magnificently.
Dave, it's so hard to encapsulate someone's career in 2 episodes. Mark Kausler, what tremendous talent, and it's great that we have him on the show.
Oh, and we're going to have him for the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
In fact, we're going to get our 200th episode with Mark Kausler Part 4. What? How's that? Wow. Mark Kausler Part 4 will be our 200th episode here at the Skull Rock Podcast.
Wow, that's awesome, Dave. I'm looking forward to that. Like, I didn't know that in advance, but it's great. I can't believe that we have these episodes that span, people's careers and lives, and we're able to document all their great work. And we're just touching the surface, I can't wait for more stories. So thank you so much for joining us, Mark. We look forward to another great week here at Skull Rock Podcast next week. Once again, don't forget, gang, thank you all for being here on the show and listening to the very end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our show everywhere you get podcasts, including now YouTube, where you can hit that bell for notifications every time we post new content. Indeed. You can also leave us messages and comments on our podcast using our podcast app. Of course, you can also leave comments on YouTube as well. We do appreciate that. Our entire episode archive list is on skullrockpodcast.com, or if you will, you can even go to YouTube now, and all 198 episodes are there for you and your listening pleasure. Send us those emails as well if you would. We'd love to hear from you and read your email in a future episode. Dave at skullrockpodcast.com or Aljon at skullrockpodcast.com. A quick plug for my other podcast, Dining at Disney podcast, that happens to shoot off 2 shows every week talking about food and the Disney theme parks. You can also follow me personally on Instagram at AljonGo. Dave?
Well, here we are, another show in the can. I would say you could check out my other show, The Tunes Behind the Tunes, on SiriusXM Disney Hits, channel 133, plays throughout the month, and each month there's a different song we're spotlighting. I've been getting some nice notes from people on Facebook, and I guess it was Facebook, telling me that they've heard me on SiriusXM. So check that out. I hope you like it. Let me know if you're listening to it. If you want to see any of my books or get an autographed copy of one of my books, check out theoldmillpress.com, and you can always go to davidbossert.com. There's free stuff. There's free content. Check that out. And I'll say, go out, have a fantastic week. As always, be kind to one another, and we'll see you back here next Monday, right here on the Skull Rock Podcast.